April 14th, 1945. Dawn, Zwolle, Netherlands. An SS officer stands at his command post watching something that makes no sense. His garrison, Wehrmacht infantry, Gestapo agents, Waffen-SS troops, are evacuating the city. Running. He lowers his binoculars, confused. His intelligence report said only 2 Canadian scouts entered Zwolle last night, 2 men on the reconnaissance patrol. But throughout the night, his officers reported gunfire from the north side of the city, then explosions from the east, then the Gestapo headquarters, burning. A towering inferno visible for kilometers. Machine gun fire from multiple positions simultaneously. It sounded like an entire Canadian brigade had infiltrated during darkness. So the order came down. Evacuate before dawn. The city is indefensible. What the SS officer didn't know, what German command didn't know, was this. There was no brigade. There was one man with one good eye, a Sten gun, and 6 hours of tactical precision. Rewind 6 months. June 1944. The same man, Léo Major, lay in a British military hospital with his face wrapped in bandages. A phosphorus grenade had exploded inches from his left eye. Medical officers examined the damage and delivered their verdict. Corporal Major, your combat service is over. You've lost 80% of vision in your left eye. A scout needs depth perception, peripheral awareness, situational visibility. You'll be reassigned to training duties or medically discharged. Leo's response was simple. Snipers only need one good eye. When you aim through a scope, you close one eye anyway. Send me back to my regiment. The doctors said no. Léo went anyway. This is the story of Léo Major, a man who proved that being underestimated is the most dangerous mistake an enemy or an institution can make. A French-Canadian soldier who would become the only Canadian in history to earn the Distinguished Conduct Medal twice, in 2 different wars, and whose greatest achievement, liberating an entire city of 50,000 people in a single night alone, sounds so impossible that even today historians struggle to explain how he did it. But the records are clear, the witnesses are documented, and on April 14th, 1945, 50,000 Dutch civilians woke up free because one man refused to accept the limitations everyone else placed on him. January 23, 1921, New Bedford, Massachusetts. Léo Major was born to a Franco-American family. His father, Achille Major, was from Montreal. His mother, Amanda Sévigny, came from Quebec. When Léo was still an infant, the family moved back to Montreal, working-class district, Depression-era poverty. Léo's relationship with his father was difficult, strained. At age 14, Léo left home. His father didn't believe he would amount to much. So Léo worked, farms in Quebec, construction sites. In 1938, he spent several months as an apprentice plumber on the construction of Montreal's Central Station. Then, in 1940, unemployed. When World War II began, Léo saw an opportunity, not just to serve, but to prove, to his father, to himself, that he was someone who mattered. June 28, 1940. Léo walked into a military recruitment office in Montreal, age 19. He initially reported to the Royal 22nd Regiment, but when he learned that the Régiment de la Chaudière would deploy to Europe first, he transferred, because Léo wasn't interested in waiting. In 1940s Canada, military service was divided along linguistic lines. French-Canadian soldiers served in predominantly French-Canadian regiments. English-Canadian soldiers led the officer corps. This wasn't accidental. it was institutional design. In 1944, Canada held a national referendum on conscription for overseas service. The question: should French Canadians be forced to serve in Europe? 83% of English Canadians voted yes. Only 28% of French Canadians agreed. The reason for this divide was clear to anyone who served. French Canadian soldiers were promoted less frequently, given fewer command positions. Their regiments were treated as secondary units, competent enough to fight, but not elite. The Canadian military had official policies during this period that explicitly barred non-Europeans from serving in certain branches. Black Canadians couldn't join the Royal Canadian Air Force or Royal Canadian Navy in combat roles at all. French Canadians could fight, they could die, but leadership positions went to English Canadians. Léo Major never spoke extensively in interviews about discrimination he personally faced. He was a private man, modest, uncomfortable with attention. But the institutional context is documented. French Canadian soldiers of his generation understood that their service, no matter how competent, would always be viewed through the lens of their ethnicity. Léo's response to this reality was simple: prove competence through action. During the Scheldt operations, Léo Major captured 93 German soldiers. Not killed, captured. 93 enemy combatants taken prisoner by one man operating alone behind enemy lines. The method was tactical psychology. Here's how it worked. Léo would infiltrate a German defensive position at night. Small outposts, usually 8 to 12 soldiers manning a machine gun nest or artillery observer station. He'd fire his Sten gun from one direction, throw grenades from another angle, shout commands in English as if signalling other Canadian soldiers. The Germans, hearing gunfire from multiple directions and explosions coordinated across different positions, assumed they were surrounded by a larger force. Léo would then offer them a choice: surrender now or face annihilation. Most chose surrender. He'd march them, hands raised, back toward Canadian lines, sometimes 2 kilometers through enemy-held territory, then return to German positions and repeat the process. One night in late October, Léo captured a group of 10 German soldiers this way. He escorted them back through no man's land, turned them over to Canadian forces, then immediately returned to enemy territory. By dawn, he captured 30 soldiers in total. A Canadian officer asked him, "How many are out there?" Léo's response: "Fewer than yesterday." After the Battle of the Scheldt, Léo Major was recommended for the Distinguished Conduct Medal, one of the highest honours for non-commissioned soldiers in the Commonwealth. The award was to be presented by Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery personally. Léo's response: "No, I don't want a medal from Montgomery." Officers were stunned. You don't refuse medals. You don't insult field marshals. Léo explained, "Montgomery's planning at the Scheldt cost Canadian lives unnecessarily. He's incompetent. I won't accept recognition from him." This wasn't about ego or disrespect for military tradition. Léo wasn't fighting for personal glory. He was fighting to prove that French Canadian soldiers were as competent, more competent, than institutional prejudice suggested. And accepting a medal from a general he viewed as incompetent would undermine that mission. The medal was noted in his record, but never formally presented during the war. By April 1945, Léo Major had become a legend within Régiment de la Chaudière, the one-eyed scout, the man who captured nearly 100 Germans alone, the soldier who refused medals from field marshals. But his greatest test was still ahead, and it would begin with the death of his best friend. April 13th, 1945. By this point in the war, Germany's collapse was inevitable. Berlin was surrounded. Hitler's Reich was weeks from total defeat. But German forces still occupied Dutch cities, including Zwolle. Zwolle, a city of 50,000 civilians in the eastern Netherlands, strategic location on major railway lines connecting Germany to the Dutch coast. German garrison composition: Wehrmacht regular infantry, Gestapo security police, Waffen-SS units. Canadian command wanted Zwolle liberated. Standard assault plan: artillery bombardment at dawn, followed by infantry advance. But there was a problem. 50,000 Dutch civilians trapped in the city. An artillery bombardment would kill hundreds, possibly thousands of innocent people. Canadian officers proposed an alternative: send a reconnaissance patrol first. If scouts could assess German garrison strength and establish contact with the Dutch underground resistance, perhaps artillery could be avoided. They needed volunteers. 2 men willing to infiltrate a German-occupied city at night with no backup and no radio communication. Léo Major volunteered immediately. His partner, Corporal Wilfrid Arsenault, full name Wilfrid Arsenault, though everyone called him Willy or Willy. Willy and Léo had served together since Sicily. They were best friends. Willy trusted Léo's one-eyed reconnaissance skills more than most officers trusted their own intelligence reports. Mission orders from Canadian Command: scout Zwolle, assess German garrison strength, numbers, positions, defensive preparations, establish contact with Dutch resistance if possible, report back by dawn. If you're not back by 0600 hours, artillery begins at 0630. Simple reconnaissance. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Equipment: Sten guns, British submachine guns, 9mm ammunition, 32-round magazines, effective range 50 to 100 meters. Grenades, Mills bombs, British fragmentation grenades. Exact number not specified in records, but standard loadout would be 6 to 8 per man. No radio, no backup. If something went wrong, they were on their own. Night of April 13th, 1945. Léo and Willy crossed Canadian lines and moved through darkness towards Zwolle. 2 kilometers through no man's land. Standard mission. Léo had done this dozens of times before. Scout enemy positions, gather intelligence, report back. What could go wrong? What Léo didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that in 6 hours he would be the only Canadian in Zwolle, fighting an entire German garrison alone. And by dawn, 50,000 Dutch civilians would be free. But first, Wilfrid Arsenault had to die. Shortly after midnight, Léo and Willy approached the outskirts of Zwolle. They moved carefully. Standard reconnaissance protocol: stay low, move in darkness, avoid contact if possible. Then, machine gun fire. German position concealed, waiting. Corporal Wilfrid Arsenault was hit multiple times, killed instantly. Léo dropped to cover, returned fire, killed the German machine gunner. Then, silence. Léo crawled to Willy's body, his best friend, dead. 50 years later, in a 1995 interview, one of the few times Léo spoke publicly about the war, a journalist asked him what he felt when Willy was killed. Léo started to answer, "When my friend got killed, I had to." He didn't finish the sentence, but his actions that night finished it for him. Standard military procedure in this situation is clear: report back immediately, abort the mission, request backup, do not proceed alone into enemy-occupied territory after losing your partner. Léo looked at Willy's body, then at Zwolle. 50,000 Dutch civilians inside, waiting for liberation, or waiting for Canadian artillery to rain down at dawn, killing hundreds of them. Léo made a different decision. He picked up Willie's Sten gun, Willie's grenades, and walked toward the city, alone. Léo never fully explained his reasoning that night. He was a private man, uncomfortable discussing his motivations. But his actions suggest this. Willie died trying to save 50,000 people from artillery bombardment. That mission didn't end just because one of them was dead. What happened next would become one of the most extraordinary solo military actions in modern history. But at the time, Léo wasn't thinking about making history. He was thinking about Willie and about 50,000 people who didn't deserve to die because of German occupation. 6 hours, one man, one eye, one city. Léo entered Zwolle alone. Population 50,000. German garrison, unknown strength, but intelligence estimated several hundred Wehrmacht infantry, Gestapo agents, and Waffen-SS troops. His original mission was reconnaissance, but reconnaissance wouldn't prevent the artillery bombardments scheduled for dawn. Léo needed to do something no military manual had ever prescribed. Make an entire German garrison believe they were under attack by a major Canadian force. Force them to evacuate, spare the city, with one man in 6 hours. First hour, psychological warfare begins. Léo moved through darkened streets. He spotted a German patrol, 4 soldiers walking casually, cigarettes lit, unaware. He let them pass. Why? Because killing 4 soldiers wouldn't accomplish the mission. He needed the entire garrison to panic. Léo climbed to elevated positions, church tower, building rooftops. He fired his Sten gun at German defensive positions, 32 rounds, then moved. 500 meters away, different angle, fired again. German officers heard gunfire from the north, then from the east, then from the south. Multiple positions firing simultaneously. Their conclusion? Canadian infiltration force, multiple squads, coordinated assault. Second hour, escalation. Léo continued the pattern. Fire from position A, throw grenade, move to position B, fire again. Each time Germans responded with machine guns and mortar fire, hitting nothing, because Léo was already gone. Third hour, capturing prisoners. Léo encountered isolated German positions, small outposts separated from the main garrison. His tactic? Approach from unexpected angles. Fire warning shots. Yell in English, "You're surrounded! Surrender immediately!" The Germans, hearing explosions and gunfire across the city all night, believed him. Groups of 8 to 10 soldiers surrendered, but Léo couldn't hold prisoners, so he marched them out of the city at gunpoint, pointed toward Canadian lines 2 kilometers away. He told them, "Walk that direction. Tell your commanders a Canadian brigade is in Zwolle. Resistance is futile. Evacuate before dawn or face annihilation." Then Léo returned to the city and did it again. By the third hour, Léo had captured and released approximately 30 German soldiers. Each group carried the same message back to their commanders. Canadians are inside Zwolle in force. The city is lost. Fourth hour, the Gestapo headquarters. Léo identified the Gestapo headquarters building, fortified, SS guards outside. The Gestapo, Geheime Staatspolizei, secret state police, had terrorized Zwolle for years. arrested Dutch resistance members, executed civilians for minor infractions, created an atmosphere of fear.
For Léo, this wasn't just tactics, this was symbolic.
He approached the building, threw grenades through ground floor windows. The building caught fire. According to Dutch witnesses who watched from nearby homes, the building's gas main ignited. The explosion was massive, flames visible across the entire city. Dutch civilians later described it as a towering inferno. German commanders saw the Gestapo headquarters burning and drew the obvious conclusion. This wasn't a small raid. This was a major assault. Canadian forces had infiltrated deep into the city centre, combined with reports of gunfire from multiple positions, captured soldiers reporting brigade-strength forces and the ongoing explosions throughout the night. German command made a decision. The city is indefensible. Evacuate before dawn. 5th hour. The bluff. At some point during the night, the exact timing is unclear from available records, Léo captured the German soldier. But instead of marching him out of the city like the others, Léo gave him a specific message. Tell your commanders a Canadian brigade surrounds Zwolle. Surrender now or face complete destruction at dawn. Then, and this detail is documented by both Canadian and German sources, Léo gave the soldier his weapon back, as proof of good faith. The German soldier, convinced that only a confident commander of a large force would return an enemy's weapon, delivered the message exactly as instructed. German commanders, already planning evacuation based on the night's chaos, received this message as confirmation of their decision. 6th hour, dawn. As the sun rose over Zwolle on April 14, 1945, German forces evacuated the city. Wehrmacht troops, SS units, Gestapo agents, all gone. At 0600 hours, Canadian reconnaissance units advanced towards Zwolle, expecting heavy resistance. They found empty German defensive positions, white flags on some buildings, Dutch civilians emerging from homes, celebrating. The 7th Reconnaissance Regiment entered the city first and reported, "No German forces encountered. City appears to be liberated." But Dutch resistance members met the Canadians and told them something unbelievable. One Canadian soldier did this, last night, alone. When Canadian officers found Léo, he was exhausted, eye patch still in place, Sten gun empty, covered in soot from the Gestapo headquarters fire. They asked, "What happened?" Léo's response, "Germans evacuated. City is free. No artillery needed." Final statistics. Civilian casualties, 0. German casualties, unknown number killed in firefights throughout the night, dozens captured and released. Entire garrison evacuated without a major battle. Canadian casualties. Corporal Wilfrid Arsenault. Duration approximately 6 hours. 1 man, 1 eye. 50,000 people freed. The Canadian military's official after-action report for April 14, 1945, notes that Zwolle was liberated with minimal resistance. It mentions reconnaissance efforts but doesn't fully detail Léo's solo action. Why? Because even in 1945, military commanders struggled to believe one soldier could accomplish what Léo did. But the Dutch witnesses were clear. The German evacuation was documented, the timing was precise, and by 0630 hours, when Canadian artillery was scheduled to begin bombardment, there were no Germans left to bombard. 50,000 Dutch civilians were spared because one man refused to accept the word impossible. After Zwolle, Léo Major was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal. This time, he accepted. The citation recognized exceptional bravery tactical initiative, and devotion to duty beyond the call of normal reconnaissance operations. But Léo's military service wasn't over. The Korean War began. Léo re-enlisted. Now, aged 29, married, with a family, but when Canada called for volunteers, he went. November 1951, Hill 355, a strategic position in central Korea. Léo, now a sergeant, led his company in capturing the hill from Chinese forces. His unit repelled 4 separate Chinese counterattacks over 3 days. He also led a rescue mission that saved a surrounded American platoon. For this action, Léo Major received his 2nd Distinguished Conduct Medal. He became the only Canadian soldier in history to earn the DCM twice, in 2 different wars. The only one. After Korea, Léo returned to Quebec. He married Pauline de Croiselle in 1951. They had 4 children, 5 grandchildren. Léo worked, raised his family, lived quietly in Longueuil, Quebec. He was, by all accounts, modest, private, uncomfortable with publicity. He didn't seek recognition. He didn't tell stories about the war unless asked directly. But Zwolle never forgot. Every year on April 14th, the city of Zwolle holds liberation commemorations. A street is named after Léo Major. A monument was erected in his honor. In 2005, the city made him an honorary citizen. Dutch children study his story in schools. When Léo visited Zwolle in his later years, he made several trips. Dutch civilians recognized him on the streets. Elderly residents who remembered April 14, 1945, would approach him, thank him, sometimes with tears, because they knew if Léo hadn't acted that night, Canadian artillery would have begun at 0630 hours. Hundreds of civilians would have died. In Canada, however, Léo Major remained largely unknown. No major national honours, no statues, no films. For decades, his story was known only within military veteran communities and in the small circle of people who studied obscure World War II history. It wasn't until 2018, 10 years after his death, that Radio-Canada produced a documentary titled Léo Major, Le Fantôme Borgne, the One-Eyed Ghost. Only then did Canadians begin learning his story in significant numbers. October 12, 2008, Longueuil, Quebec. Léo Major died at age 87. When news reached Zwolle, the city flew its flags at half-mast. The Dutch lieutenant colonel from the Netherlands embassy in Ottawa attended his funeral. A man once viewed through the lens of institutional prejudice was honoured by 2 nations. A man told his combat days were over, fought in 2 wars, and earned the highest decorations both times. A man expected to fail by medical boards, by institutional limitations, by the simple mathematics of one person against an entire garrison, became a legend with one good eye. Léo Major's story isn't just about military tactics or individual heroism. It's about what happens when someone decides, the people who underestimated me don't get to define what I'm capable of. Medical officers said one eye disqualifies you. Léo proved limitations are negotiable. Institutional systems said French Canadians aren't leadership material. Léo proved competence transcends prejudice. Military doctrine said abort the mission when your partner dies. Léo proved that sometimes the most important decisions are made alone, in the dark. On April 14, 1945, 50,000 Dutch people woke up free, because one man refused to accept what everyone told him was impossible. Léo Major,
the one-eyed ghost. The man who liberated a city in 6 hours. Alone. Léo Major's story was almost lost to history, known in Zwolle, almost unknown in his own country for 70 years. Stories like his deserve to be preserved. If you agree, please subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. Share this video so others can learn about the forgotten heroes who changed history. In the comments, tell us, where are you watching from? And what other forgotten World War II stories should we cover next? Thank you for watching. And thank you for helping us preserve these memories before they disappear forever. By 1944, Léo had deployed to North Africa, Sicily, Italy. He'd proven himself as a reconnaissance scout, quick, fearless, tactically sharp. He was still Private Léo Major, not an officer, not command material by institutional standards, but the men in his regiment, Régiment de la Chaudière, knew. If you needed someone to infiltrate enemy lines, gather intelligence and return alive, you sent Léo. Then came June 24th, 1944, 18 days after D-Day, and everything changed. June 24th, 1944, near Carpiquet, France. The Normandy countryside in late June, hedgerows, stone walls, every field a potential ambush. Léo Major was on reconnaissance with 4 other Canadian soldiers, deep behind German lines. Their mission, scout enemy positions, report back. They encountered a German SS patrol, 5 soldiers, contact, firefight, close range. Léo's team killed 4 of the 5 Germans, but the 5th man, mortally wounded, threw something before he died. Not a standard fragmentation grenade, a phosphorus grenade. White phosphorus is a chemical weapon designed to ignite on contact with air. It burns at approximately 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It sticks to skin and clothing. It keeps burning until oxygen is depleted or the phosphorus is completely consumed. The Geneva Protocol of 1925 technically classified white phosphorus as a chemical weapon, but both Allied and Axis forces used it throughout World War II, officially for marking targets and creating smoke screens, unofficially because of its horrific effectiveness against personnel. The grenade struck Léo directly in the face. Field medics evacuated him to a military hospital. Medical assessment: severe phosphorus burns across the left side of his face. His left eye, 80% vision loss, functionally blind. The doctor's conclusion was immediate. "You're done, Corporal. A scout needs peripheral vision, depth perception, situational awareness. One eye disqualifies you from frontline reconnaissance duty." Against his will, Léo was shipped to a hospital in England. For most soldiers, this would be an honourable end, a Purple Heart equivalent. Go home, heal, survive. But for Léo, evacuation felt like failure. He'd left home at 14 to prove he wasn't worthless. He'd enlisted to prove French Canadians weren't second class. And now, medical officers were telling him, "You're finished." Léo spent July and August 1944 in hospital recovering. He looked in the mirror. His left eye ruined, scarred, functionally useless. His right eye, perfect. He made his argument to medical officers. Snipers only need one good eye. When you aim through a scope, you close one eye anyway. I can still shoot. I can still scout. Send me back to my regiment. Medical officers were skeptical. Regulations required full combat fitness. One eye was a disqualifying condition. Léo's response: "Then change the regulations." The official record shows that Léo Major refused medical discharge. He convinced, or perhaps simply wore down, his commanding officers. By September 1944, he returned to Régiment de la Chaudière with an eye patch and something to prove. Léo later joked in interviews that he looked like a pirate after losing vision in his left eye, but he also said this: the Germans should have been more afraid of a pirate. They weren't. Not yet. Before we continue with what happened next, if you believe stories like Léo Major's deserve to be preserved and remembered, please hit the like button. It helps us continue researching these forgotten heroes before their stories disappear. And in the comments below, tell us, where are you watching from? We love hearing from viewers around the world who care about preserving military history. Now, let's return to October 1944, Belgium and the Netherlands, where Léo Major was about to prove that one eye was all he needed. October 1944, Netherlands, the Battle of the Scheldt. For those unfamiliar, the Scheldt estuary connects the Belgian port of Antwerp to the North Sea. By October 1944, the Allies had captured Antwerp, the largest port in Europe, but couldn't use it. German forces controlled the Scheldt estuary, blocking all maritime access. Without Antwerp, the entire Allied advance into Germany was stalled. Supplies couldn't arrive fast enough by truck and rail. Canadian forces were tasked with clearing the Scheldt. The Germans were entrenched in flooded polders, low-lying farmland deliberately flooded to create natural defences, machine gun nests, artillery positions, minefields. It became one of the bloodiest Canadian battles of World War II. Léo Major, now wearing an eye patch, was assigned to reconnaissance duties. His job: infiltrate German defensive positions at night, identify troop strength, weapon placements, defensive structures, report back to Canadian Command for artillery planning. Standard reconnaissance work. But Léo didn't just observe.